Critical Pedagogy Chapter Presentation by me, Michael Santos. So I did Chapter 17, Beyond the Methods of Fetish Toward a Humanizing Pedagogy by Lilia Bartolomei. And the theme of this chapter was schools hold asymmetrical power relations and a deficient view of minority students similar to society. And I labeled this The Truth Hurts because the truth does hurt. This is an ugly truth of our society that, minorities don't have less opportunities in school. The reality is they don't have the same resources or opportunities that white privileged students have. And also there's a negative image that's carried around by minorities, and a lot of this is similar to society due to our media, our social media, and just the environment we live in today. And social media, we get all these racial, sexist memes coming out, and it doesn't help for these young students to be exposed to this because it translates to the schools. And teachers a lot take, oh, this is fun and games, this is just jokes, but we need to fix this. We need to educate our students and show them that this is not right. This is not okay. But the issue that the chapter goes into is that teachers have this negative image on minorities and this false perception that life in school is fair, but it's not. This is just another entertainment industry. We see them, big role models that we see in our entertainment today for our youth, showing them to do like inappropriate things. These negative images are giving minorities a bad name. We have the Italians over here, Jersey Shore, and we have a young African American over here smoking weed. So it doesn't help for our students to be exposed to this. But I'm not saying shelter them, but we need to educate these students to show them that this is not appropriate behavior, that there's something there's better than this. And also, and this is another negative image from the movie Next Friday that depicts most Latinos as criminals, showing them as thugs, tattooed up. It's just another misconception we get from minorities, another negative image we get that is also seen in society. And then we have this misconception that society's all great and dandy, just like the Brady Bunch. This is Full House, but just how this is what American Family looks like. All the males wear button-up shirts. All the females are very conservative, all well-behaved. So what we see in society, we see in school, and this is a big issue because this is our youth, and they're going to be the next generation basically to lead, our society, and there's really no change. It's kind of like a circle. And I want to show you guys this video that I found that I seen it in one of my old professor's classes, talking about stereotypes we see in society. So we're just going to go into it right now.
What's the difference between a Jew and a pizza? Pizza doesn't scream when you put it in the oven.
How do you get a fat girl's phone number? Ask her to step on the scale.
What is the easiest way to get a one-armed blonde out of a tree? You wave at her.
What do you call a group of black people? An auction.
What do you give a queer with AIDS for Christmas? Cancer.
Leaves me no other choice. True revolution of values will lay hand on the world order and say of war, this way of settling differences is not just. This business of burning human beings with napalm, filling our nation's homes with orphans and widows, of injecting poisonous drugs of hate into the veins of people's normally humane, sending men home from dark and bitter battlefields, physically handicapped and psychologically deranged, cannot be reconciled with wisdom, justice, and love. Cannot be reconciled with wisdom,
what we lack as teachers. Well, what the chapter says what we lack is it's basically knowledge of our past. Us teachers, well, most teachers today kind of forget where we as society have come from. Where equality was never, equality was, what equality was an issue, where some people didn't have rights. Women didn't have the right to vote. Minorities didn't have the right to vote. Minorities didn't have, the right to sit in the same space as whites. And just because these things happened years ago, the flames died out, but the fire is still burning. Which means is just because the event is over, just because segregation's over in public schools, doesn't mean there's not inequality in schools. There's still inequalities in schools. The funding, whether it's funding, treatment, opportunities, not all students receive the same treatment, receive the same opportunities. Not all schools receive the same funding. And this is a reality that a lot of teachers kind of like either are ignorant to the fact or ignore the fact, which does not help our students. Mistakes we see in school. So the author talks about mistakes we see in school. If everything is quiet, then things must be okay. The teacher assumes things are okay and that they don't need change. Basically, when the author was talking about was teachers are content of what's going on. If the administrator is not bugging them, if the students are not creating an uproar in classroom, then things must be okay. They must be doing something right, which is wrong. Just like this picture depicts, just because your kids are in the other room playing quietly, if you open your eyes and you actually go see what's really going on, that's actually quite a mess. Not all students are the same, so just because they're quiet in the classroom and they're not answering questions, don't assume that they're actually comprehending what they're getting. They might just be scared because either fear of being laughed at or embarrassed, or just they feel like everybody else is understanding. They don't want to be different. There must be something wrong because they are different. Minorities who struggle in school must have something wrong with them and need special instruction. And I feel like this is one also the key things here we talk about in this chapter, because this misconception of minorities, English learners, for example, just because they don't know English doesn't mean they're dumb. Doesn't mean they're not intelligent. They just don't understand the language. They could probably know calculus, but they just can't understand English, so they struggle. Okay, so the issue is some teachers, since they can't get through them, or they're different, whether they dress different, they speak differently, they have an accent, or they don't speak the language, they feel like they need something special to help them, that they can't keep up with other students. It's not that they need special instruction, but there's other methods that they need to use because not every student will be the same. This is the 21st century. Schools are all democratic and fair. Most teachers believe everything is equal: learning, funding, and treatment. Now, just hearing this, you guys are all probably laughing because we all know that schools, even till this day, even after Brown versus Board of Education, that schools are not democratic and fair. Some teachers really do believe this, or they just kind of ignore the fact that it's not. But we know, as just being students ourselves, that first off, learning opportunities, it's not always the same for every student. Not all the students, some students went to better schools than I did. So it's definitely not like that. So I know that they had more opportunities where they came from, being a higher economic class in my school. And then that falls under funding too. The opportunities, the resources the school has to give you is very unfair. And also treatment. I know a lot of you guys probably feel this way too, that some teachers treat other students differently, or whether it's the administration treating differently. But it's unfair because you can see, look through the same exam, or this picture. For a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. please climb that tree. Well, having a standardized test doesn't make everything equal. I mean, what happens if somebody is foreign? They're either here, they're citizens, but they're from another country, so they're not used to our culture, and there's a question that pertains to our culture. Well, they're going to struggle with it. I mean, that simple question for one student might be a very difficult question for another. I mean, in this picture, climbing that tree is going to be proved very easy for that monkey compared to a fish who's confined to that bowl of water. So some teachers, the author says that some teachers really do not understand, really kind of hide the fact that schools are not are unfair, and by them just hiding the fact that schools basically making it seem like everything's okay is really hurting the students in the long run. The biggest mistake that probably accompanies all of this is that one-size-fits-all method. Now, most teachers today want to replicate instructional methods to all students. So if they want one method of way of teaching and want all students to be able to succeed in it. So if somebody's different and cannot learn from that method, but it's helping a lot of other students, there must be something wrong with them, so they might need that special instruction. This is kind of one of those unfair things because the one size fits all may benefit from some students, but it's not going to benefit from all students. As you guys can tell from my PowerPoint, I'm a visual guy. I like seeing pictures. I cannot take slides with a lot of words. I need pictures to remind me of what my understanding. Basically, it's like clues for me. But I know other people that are very wordy. They need they shorthand it, or they're very hands-on kind of students, or very tech savvy. So they do a lot of reading. But I'm more of a visual guy. I learn from pictures, graphs, maps, and so on. So some things where a teacher might use a method that has no visualization, I'm going to struggle. And this is kind of like teachers, when they're looking for something to fix all these issues that we talked about, they want that one size fits all method, but it's just not going to work. I feel like the biggest issue talked about in this chapter is basically teachers are lazy. They're content on where they're at. They don't want to adapt with the new generations. They don't want to lift a finger. They don't want to change. And that's something that has to be different. That has to change because teachers need to be active, because not only they're teachers, but they need to be active learners, because with every generation comes new issues, new problems, new ideas. Going back to my field work, this is my old high school, and it's been 7 years since I've graduated, and some of the teachers are still doing the same thing that I've been there. And I went to school when smartphones weren't in and social media wasn't an issue. Now it is. Now teachers need to adapt. But instead of adapting to students and changing the curriculum into a way for them to better understand it, they're more focused on keeping obedience over the students. Get away with your phones, take off your headphones, get off social media, blah blah blah. So the fact is, I feel like this chapter is saying is that teachers are very content and are really being lazy educators, and right now. So robbing students of their culture is a quote I took from the author, and this referring to is talking about this whole idea of one size fits all method being a wrong way to approach diversity with minorities in school setting, because you're robbing their culture of language, history, values. Instead of like working with the students, you're taking away some of that freedom, their actually prior knowledge. What you should be doing is using prior knowledge to help learn the new material. Because once again, the students are not dumb. They might just come from a different background. They might think things differently than you do. So instead of trying to standardize everybody and making them robots, kind of work with the students. Use their culture to their advantage, to your advantage. Now, the interview I did with my master teacher, I asked him more questions, but I would say he's pretty old school, so the response was not what I would demand, what would I like, but I kind of foresaw it being these type of answers. But when I asked him why don't minorities succeed in schools, and he basically told me that that's not the issue. He tells me, he says, the issue is not, it's not a race issue. He says it's just parents need to be, it all starts at home basically. Parents need to be more on top of things. He deals with seniors in class. He says it's not about race. He says just some parents are more on top of it than the others, and we don't hear parents throughout the year. You only hear parents when there's little Johnny is getting, I'm quoting, little Johnny's failing the class and needs to graduate. Um, so that's his take. But me thinking behind it, well, why are these parents not involved? I mean, are they busy with work at home? Is there issues at home that you don't know? Maybe the parents at home don't speak the language, so the communication with the school is troubled. There's things that he doesn't see, but I just feel my master teacher is a little conservative when it comes to this. He believes that race is no longer an issue, that we just have people that are lazier than others. Now I asked him, do you teach differently to certain students in classes? And he says, no, I treat everybody the same. I do not do anything differently from each student or each class. And observing him, this is true. And where I like it, that everybody gets treated equally, I find it, when I'm just thinking more about it, I think it's an issue just because I noticed the students in first period are way different from students from fifth period, where interaction, engaging, what their interests are. So I feel like fifth period actually interacts with the teacher well, where first period kind of struggles because he doesn't relate to them as well as he does with fifth period. So I feel like he does need a change. It's just he's been teaching for, I would say, about 30 plus years, that he's very content on where he's at, and he doesn't feel that he needs to make the changes with the generations. And I feel like this is kind of like the general attitude in the school that I'm at, and most schools that are probably in the area. Now, this is kind of a solution with the chapter talked about. So what things teachers need to realize and do to make us better teachers? Our school's community. Learn about our school's community. Learn about the economics, the social issues, what's going on. Be involved with the students. Not just build a community inside your classroom, but build it outside. And realize schools are not perfect. Just because these schools are ran by people with degrees doesn't mean it's a perfect institution. These are human beings, and human beings are acceptable to flaws. Okay. Active role models. There's a lot of negative role models in media today. So being an active role model in the classroom, since we're seeing these students 5 days a week, at least 45 minutes long, just being well dressed, directing yourself appropriately and professionally really means a lot to these students. And by treating them with respect and treating them as young adults and not as children. Help create active students rather than being obedient students. Get engaged with students. Talk to them. Don't be the teacher that just has students copy down vocab words, have them do bubble in tests, assessments. Make it fun, make it interesting, relate the material to their lives. We want students to be active participants in society rather than people that are just going to just go throughout life and just go with the flow kind of thing. And you do this by democratic classrooms. We learned this in our previous classrooms, that, you know, that you need to engage the students, find out what they like, what they're interested in. Also challenge authority, the administrators. Don't go, I'm not saying get the students go do sit-ins in their classes, in their offices, but be a voice for the students. Talk to the administrators. Keep talk, be in their ear. I mean, I'm not saying being aggressive because, the first 2 years you gotta watch out, but challenge the authority. Stand up for the students. They don't, being underage and, at K through 12, they don't have the rights, like college students. So they need somebody to help stick up for them.